afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Breakfast Bankroll, Friday, November 19th, 2021. OMG. Let me see if my math's correct. 11/31, 42 days left in 2021, and soon will be 2022. But it's Fridays. We love Fridays. Why? We get to cross the border with our buddy, our friend, the sharpest guy I know in Canada, the one, the only, Andrew Mcinnins. Andrew, my brother, what is happening?
What is happening, Jeff? Always good to be here. It is the final week of the CFL season, man. We started doing videos together the week prior to the CFL season, so we have made it through the entire season. We'll keep this thing going all the way through. We'll keep doing shows through the playoffs and on. But we have made it through the entire CFL season. We've got one last weekend here with some interesting bet on and bet against spots. You know, some teams will have starters out there. Some teams will have rookies out there to just see the field. So I'm looking forward to the final week. But should be a great weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. How are you doing?
Doing very well. You know, the college basketball is just blown up. I was talking to a few colleagues this morning, and it's amazing how prior to November 1st or November 9th when it started, you're into the NFL, you're into the college football, NBA had started, NHL had started. Then you got the return of the MAC on Tuesday and Wednesdays. Life is grand. And now you add college basketball, and there's 100 games here. And I look at today, where there's probably 75, 80 games. And then tomorrow, you got 100 college football games. And it's just maddening how big the board is and how much work you have to do. And then people start knocking on your door and saying, hey, you remember the NHL? Do you remember the NBA? Do you remember and I'm trying to explain to them, it's not that we forgot. We just didn't see some of the value that's going on there.
Right.
Last night in the NHL, had a handful of games, puck lines, box the wires, some nice dogs here and there. With the board expanding, have you seen any notice in the way you approach each day now?
Definitely. I find that my volume has changed, you know, and you know, some might say, okay, well, why aren't you just putting in that extra amount or doing the same amount? And I am, but I'll say this, that I'm allocating time to make sure I can cover my bases across the board. And I've pretty much barely do college football. I think I've released 4 picks to my clients. And, you know, I've always been someone to say this, like you can commit to doing sports throughout a season and stuff like that. But I'm not going to just give out a pick just for the sake of feeling like I have to. And if there's a day where I've worked my butt off on the NHL slate that has 13 games, the fact is that day I might not have researched as hard into the NBA, and I might have just one play I landed on. And so I find that with the board being so spread out, sometimes I almost do better, Jeff, because I'm not, you know, I don't think I'm pushing out as many plays in each sport. It's more so, hey, I think Tampa is a good play tonight. I'm going to release that on this 10-game slate. Boom, that's my hockey play. College hoops, we're going to go with Western Kentucky. Boom, that's, you know, and that's kind of how I've been rolling. So almost the more sports that go on, the lesser volume I have per sport, but it's kind of just divided throughout the portfolio, which I really like. You know, I think some people would prefer to have just one sport at a time to kind of completely go all in on. I prefer to just be lower volume across the board with a couple different sports going on. What about you?
I'm the same way. You know, it felt so good. I think it was last Thursday. We went 3-0, and it was like an NFL, a college basketball, and an NHL. We had one in each sport, and we went 3-0, and it felt so
Nice.
good. Is the fact that, you know, you sprinkled the infield, like you just said. I always talk about that spaghetti strainer.
Yes,
you know,
yes. I like that. I like that.
And you just try to sift through the BS, the madness, and you know, lots of times you get a lot of winners left on the board that stay on the desk.
Yes.
And perfect example is Yesterday, we start the day 2-0, and then we lose the last two games. So I was talking this morning, Utah State against New Mexico State, and New Mexico State came in for us yesterday. The numbers leaned Utah State today, even though there was a public push on the other side. And of course, at halftime, Utah State's up 25. And I get the one little jab and say, we fumbled there. We left that one on the desk. Yeah, well, it's nice to be sitting with one at halftime up 26, but it's on the desk. I just didn't feel. I have a hard time sometimes. The hand that fed you yesterday, now you want to go back and go against them the next day.
Yes.
And so there's a full slate. So I wanted to first say congrats. Yesterday, last week, your college, your CFL pick, box to wire.
Oh, Montreal,
14-point winner outright. You talked about it. Take a bow.
I mean, I appreciate it. I've always said that we can make this in the NFL, even college, all sports. The final couple games of a season, you really find out which teams care more or which players will be out there. And one thing I'll say, on one of the shows on Wager Talk, they do a segment called "What Did You Learn Last Night?" One of the things I learned last week in the CFL was that Winnipeg isn't as deep as I thought they might have been. And I mean, they didn't have their MVP quarterback. They didn't have their number one running back. And even a few defensive players weren't out there. But it was a clear difference with that Winnipeg team without a couple key guys. And yet we were still getting points with Montreal. That's what I found so interesting was that a number opened up at +8 still for the Alouettes, closed around +6, +5. And yet this team, like you mentioned, didn't just win outright by, a couple points. They won outright in dominant fashion, which I guess just goes to show that. But we have to all think, we hate to use the term Publix and Sharts, but it is a thing. And I can almost guarantee many people said, hey, look, Winnipeg's playing Montreal. Let me lay in with Winnipeg. And I bet you those people didn't even check the starting lineups and stuff like that. But I appreciate it. It was a good week. And I think that it goes to show that sometimes during the beginning of the season and the end is when you can make your most money. And kind of during the middle is when the odds makers might be the sharpest. So a couple spots I like this week, Jeff. We'll try and find some more winners.
Well, I'm going to pull up your Wager Talk right now. I'm going to pull up Friday night, and it should hit right in the honey hole here for you. So you can take a peek here. Let's pull it up. I got your CFL, and I got the NHL.
Perfect.
Maybe you could take a run with it. A small slate on both of them, but maybe you see something that you could lean some picks. So where your eyes are seeing today?
Well, in the NHL, I find it's a really interesting day because you pretty much have two desperate teams, and both of those desperate teams are at home. Vancouver, I took them +175 to make the playoffs to start off this year. They have not had a good start to their season. Their specialty teams has been horrible. PK has been horrible. PP has been horrible. They're giving up goals left and right. And Winnipeg, albeit they're off the back-to-back, they've actually played some pretty solid defense. They've got Eric Comrie in nets for them. He's played well. But the fact of the matter is, I always say you can play well, but who have you played well against? And Eric Comrie, I think he has had the typical back-to-back games. So he's played a lot of the teams that you'd want your backup to play against. And I'm actually going to go ahead here and take the desperate team at home in Vancouver. I think their past couple losses, they've looked a lot better than numbers might have shown for them. And I think some of the advanced numbers might show that. And there's a lot of good leadership in this room. And at home is where they're going to do it and bounce back. So it's about a pick 'em price here. And I think that without Hellebuck in net and with this team in Winnipeg on the back-to-back, I do like Vancouver at home to get the job done. And as far as Colorado, Seattle, oh boy, I think everyone thought for a second Seattle was going to be the second coming of Vegas, and I wasn't buying into it. I follow a lot of advanced websites for hockey stats, and Money Puck is one of them that's gotten really trendy lately for a lot of people. And they keep track of expected goals, goal differential, all that good stuff. And Seattle was top 4 for most of the season so far. And it seems like every game they play, Jeff, they've just dropped a ranking, dropped to 5th, dropped to 7th. And it's because they were scoring from lots of different angles, and they were getting a lot of lucky goals, and they were scoring on the power play. And I kind of compared it to this. It's kind of like, a pitcher that gets called up from the minors and they play their first game and they're real impressive because no one's ever seen their stuff. Or, I play basketball. You go up to a court outside in the summer and you have no idea who these players are you're playing against. You don't know their moves. And then all of a sudden you see them again at the park and again, and you learn their moves. And I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. People are starting to understand Seattle. And once they understood them and what they're about and who their top players are, they've lost 5 straight games. And they're not going to be the second coming of the Vegas Golden Knights. Unfortunately, they only have a few goal scorers that you can really rely on. So I'm not going to overthink this. I think Colorado on the road gets it done. They've been really strong without McKinnon in the lineup. They've got a deep lineup. And I look at Grubauer. It's kind of a spot against his old team. We'll see it. We'll see what can happen here. It's a game I'm kind of spotty on. I don't love it, but I think Colorado can get the job done. I think the price is a little cheaper than it should be here. Lean towards the under, actually, as well, because I think that, albeit the only way Seattle can beat Colorado, I think, is scoring some goals. And I have them as a huge home-away split type of team. I expect them to be a much better team at home. But when I look at this team, I also think that if they have any chance against Colorado, they have to shut them down. Grubauer will probably play it better against his former team. And Colorado's defensemen have started to stay at home a lot more and jump into the rush a lot less, I've noticed. So those are my picks for tonight's hockey action, at least. What about yourself?
Well, I was going to ask you 2 things. I mean, I saw the opening number on Colorado at 170. I'll say it's more of an adjusted number at circa to 133. I'm not going to say that the Sharps came in overnight and just dumped duffel bags on Seattle again, because I think that's what everyone thought, that Seattle obviously was going to be Vegas, and they're
Right.
not, as you just stated. My question to you is, how are you seeing this early in the season, teams on the back-to-backs? Reason I'm asking is I think the public perception is always to go against the team on the back-to-backs. What are you seeing with your eyes? Are you getting the better prices on these teams on the back-to-backs? Because everyone's saying, oh, they're playing back-to-back. They had to travel from A to B. They got the backup goalie in. Therefore, I got to take, the other team.
Yeah, I'd say in short terms, I'd say bet on the teams that are good on back-to-backs and bet against the lower teams on back-to-backs, which sounds really simple to say, but look at Tampa, look at Washington, Colorado. A lot of these teams at the top of the league have done very well in back-to-backs. I think Washington right now is 9-1, their last 10 back-to-back situations. Tampa Bay, they've always been a good team back-to-back games, probably because they've always had good goalie tandems. But, I heard Jason Spezza of the Leafs say it like 2 weeks ago. He said, guys, these matter way more to you guys than it does to us. He said, we only start to feel this, about a midway point of the season or late in the season. Like, we have to remind ourselves that's what these guys get paid millions of dollars to do, is to be in shape. So I remember when in football, Eddie Lacy used to get these bonuses if he came into camp in shape. Fortunately, the NHL players don't have to have those bonuses. So, yeah, I think that I don't always take it into account. I guess with my thought process with Winnipeg and Vancouver, it almost just helps my case with the analysis, I guess. And I guess the point for me with Winnipeg is that Eric Comrie, if you looked at his numbers, you'd be like, okay, yeah, this guy's been a decent backup so far, but he also hasn't played like really great teams when he's been in there as a backup. So I'm taking it. I think that one of the desperate teams wins tonight, and one of the desperate teams continues to struggle.
Eddie Lacy, OMG, 2016. He fell to me in a high stakes fantasy league draft. And I'm sitting there with my partner and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe he fell to us. And it's one of those that he fell to you. You got to take him, but he fell to you for a reason.
Yeah.
And oh my God, you just brought smiles to my face and misery all at the same time.
Well, I'm a Packers fan, right? So I used to always get a good laugh out of it because he was a beast because no one could take him down, but then he would just like get out of shape and get injured, you know?
Couldn't leave the buffet line, that's for sure.
Hopefully when I'm in Vegas, I'm in a few buffet lines. That's the plan.
Absolutely. CFL tonight, rotation number 441, 442, Ottawa at Montreal. Montreal opened up at 14 and a hook, currently 12 and a hook with friends at Circa, 13s at Westgate and South Point, and under-over opening at 45, still at 45. Any thoughts there?
Well, when I look at this game in particular, I think that this might be one of the only games of the week that I expect to see points in, and actually an exciting game. We've got an Ottawa team that I came on your show every single week and made fun of. And then we have a Montreal team with a quarterback in Trevor Harris that's still trying to get acquainted with his game plan, get ready for the playoffs. I think it's actually hilarious that, Trevor Harris is a quarterback that I would come on here, especially early in the season, and I talked up the Elks big time. And I have no problem admitting I was wrong about something. It happens, unfortunately. But he gets to go from a horrible Elks team, and all of a sudden, because of injuries and just poor play, he's now the starting QB on a playoff team. I mean, that's a dream for this guy. He was on a horrible team all year. They struggle with injuries, and all of a sudden, they're like, "Hey, you're our number one guy." So Jeff, I think this game is one of the main ones that we might see both teams just say, "Hey, let's leave it all out there. Let's have a big week and let's put some points up." So I think Ottawa can cover this game, but I actually prefer the over more so. As far as the second game tonight, jump on the under and jump on it now. I think close to kickoff, that number continues to drop. We're seeing backups for both teams. We're the Elks are stating they're going to try and give it a go and have some of their starters back because they didn't play last week. We know that it's Nathan Rourke playing for the BC Lions. Michael Riley is not dressing at the quarterback position. So I just think there's going to be it's going to be a coaching type day. It's not going to be the exact same scheme. It's not going to be the exact same playbook you might have seen in week 7. And I think that's one of the main factors in why I like the under here. This is going to be one of those games where you'll see a lack of cohesion for the first quarter and a half, I think, which should help us out big time with the under.
You said this is the last week, correct? Before the playoffs?
Yes.
I'm going to throw you a soft curve here. Is there any futures out there? I mean, I know you've kind of made a stand on where you think who's going to win the Grey Cup. Is there anyone out there that could steal the thunder or get to the championship side where you might have a hedge opportunity, or is this pretty clear cut right now?
What are the odds? Let's pull it up. I'll try and take a look here and find the odds while we're it's interesting because you look at the West Division. I always say this, that it's interesting with the West Division because there's always that crossover team that goes over to the East, and you try and figure out who's going to be the team that can kind of make some noise and stuff. I might look at Saskatchewan. They are the number 2 seed. They have obviously clinched already. Everybody knows Winnipeg's the clear-cut favorite. You're looking at the odds board right now. We've got Winnipeg pretty much like plus 100 to win the Grey Cup, which is crazy. But the price kind of backs it up. I'll tell you, though, Jeff, the Saskatchewan Roughriders are plus 700, and okay. if it's very obvious they're going to be the team that they're going to probably go up against. It's going to be 1 versus 2 in that West Finals, right? So ideally, you're going to get plus 700, and then they're going to go head to head in the West Finals. If they go ahead and win that, then all of a sudden, you got a huge upset alert, and you're ahead of the game because they're going to win their first playoff matchup. I'm not sure if they'll cover the point spread, but that's for another week for you and I to discuss. But looking at the standings right now in the CFL, so you've got Winnipeg 1, Saskatchewan 2, Calgary 3, BC 4. East Division is Toronto, Hamilton, Montreal, and then Ottawa. So I look at this and I see a Saskatchewan team that's number 2 in the West, and yet they're plus 700. And the craziest part is that going back to the odds, this is one of the first years since I've been really following this league and handicapping it, where there's a clear discrepancy besides that one team in the West in Winnipeg, Jeff, where the East seems to be dominant. I mean, looking at the teams like Toronto and Hamilton ahead, we've got Toronto plus 525. To me, that's not good enough odds because they're still a team that has something to prove when it comes to the postseason. They won several years ago, and it was a great run for them, and they do have lots of talent to do it. But if we're talking strictly value, if I was at the window with you right now at a sports book looking to get a future going, I would take the 7-1 shot because I know that team in Saskatchewan will be the one that's playing Winnipeg. And obviously, there's no value on Winnipeg at all right now. If you want Winnipeg to win the Grey Cup at this point, you should just bet them every game and carry that over. But right now, looking at Saskatchewan, if they knock off Winnipeg, they have a clear-cut shot with their defensive abilities to go to the Grey Cup and get the job done. So that's something that my clients will be locked in with. So you use the word hedge too. I mean, that's just like it's something you just can't really ignore because I said to you on the show before, Winnipeg is clearly ahead of the rest of the pack, but in a head-to-head matchup at 7-1, you beat that team, you're going into the Grey Cup with a 7-1 ticket. It's pretty hard to avoid that or to pass that up.
So if that was to happen, obviously you don't have a crystal ball, but pretty much if they were to pull that upset, would they be within 3, 4, 6 points? In other words, if you're holding a 7-1 ticket, you got a clear-cut hedge where in that Grey Cup final, where you're going to probably make 3.5 units either which way.
Yeah, and I'll just take a look, and the good thing is depending on how these East teams play over the next couple of weeks, if Hamilton ends up being in the Grey Cup at home, I might go ahead and play on them, and that way I'm sitting there betting on one team and a future ticket on the other, and it's a win-win night for me. And I'm going to be at my very first CFL game this year, which will be the Grey Cup. I got my ticket, so I'm super excited for that.
I can't wait for that. Can't wait. All right, we're going to head on into the NFL quickly here for you.
So that under's the best bet here for the show. I'll say that. The under's the best bet for this week's show. We'll try and make it 2 strong winners.
That was under 47, correct?
Under 47.
All right, the NFL is here in front of you. It's a pretty decent board in my eyes. Is there anything for anyone here that you've been eyeing or anything that kind of looks appealing? I know it's Friday. We're getting the reports here. Who's in, who's out? I can just tell you right now that it looks like Goff for Detroit is going to be out. So they're going to be wheeling out Mr. Boyle. And that line is just jumping there. Hats off to the Patriots. I'm telling you right now, wow. I know it's the Falcons. I know it's a short week. I know what Belichick does to rookie coaches. But this defense, I don't think there's a better defense playing right now in the NFL. They got 10 days to get ready for the Titans. They're 1 game behind the Titans. And then the following week, I think they travel to Buffalo. So technically speaking, in 2 weeks, the Patriots could be 9-4 and the number 1 seed.
Unbelievable. And one thing that I find funny is that, people look at Bill Belichick, and I saw, I'm sure you've seen this in the presser, somebody was like stumbling their words around and tried to say to Bill Belichick, why do you think it happens that your team, is it something that is planned where your team is always, excelling around this part of the season. And he gives the most Bill Belichick answer. He's like, well, actually, Tom, we try and win every game. It made me laugh. He's like, if you think that we lose every other game on purpose just to do well now, and sometimes I wonder if these reporters ever actually played sports before, because that's kind of a dumb question. I mean, how can you ask a coach, oh, well, is it something you guys plan on doing to get better during the season? It's like, yeah, we do try and improve as the season moves forward. But their defense has been solid. I got to say, Jeff, hopefully we can figure it out this week, because I've noticed this since we started chatting NFL. I don't think there's been many plays where you and I have agreed on that haven't come in. So the Vikings a few times, the Patriots a few times, the Saints. I mean, we've been able to get on the same page with some picks here. So I got to ask you this. I'm going to not really think twice about this one. One of the plays I'm on is it's kind of a confidence play here with Buffalo. I'm looking at their team total. I think this team gets at least 30 points this week and has an offensive explosion. I know that they actually have only really beaten up on so-so teams. The funny thing is both these teams have actually played very similar teams and beaten very similar teams. But I like Buffalo's offense, and I think they've had a Charmin ultra soft schedule to start off their season. But I feel like they're going to pick it up. They got some confidence, and I think that they'll get over 27.5 team total points, or whatever the current number is that we're seeing. But what about you? Any disagreement with that, or can you agree with me on that?
I've been talking all week. Indy's been that weird team where they go out to LA and they just destroy the Rams. They were getting 7 or 8. They went to the Ravens. They were getting 7 or 8 and should have won that game and lost in overtime. And I watched them last week. Let Jacksonville back in the game. I don't know if they were peeking ahead to this game. I have a hard time with Wentz going to Buffalo. I don't have the weather in front of me. But I do know, dome teams traveling up north to Buffalo in the middle of November usually doesn't end well. And I think Buffalo comes in with a chip on their shoulder. I think Josh Allen comes in with a chip on their shoulder, because now they were the talk of the AFC. They were the team to beat. And what we just talked about with the Patriots, Mac Jones, Bill Belichick, they're playing the second fiddle right now. Kansas City finally found out how to win again, and now they play Dallas this week. So I agree with you. I think the total was 50. I think that this Indy team gets to 30 plus myself. So I think your eyes are spot on.
And team totals like that are some that I don't make often, but I'll tell you what, they're fun to watch. They can be, at least, because you're just cheering on one team. You don't care what the other team does. You're just cheering on points from one side or the other. Baltimore, Chicago. I'm looking at some player props. I think that Lamar Jackson, I'm looking at his rushing yards over. This time around, I'm looking at his passing yards. I got 220.5, believe it or not, for his passing yards, which I thought was completely ridiculous, for the fact that this is a guy that is constantly involved in higher scoring games, it seems, but we all know that he can run the ball. And taking a look at his average on the season, there's a clear differential. He's hit this in over 4 games. Got a Bears team averaging 241 passing yards against per game. I think that game in particular is actually going to be closer than some might think, strictly because I'm not a fan of this Baltimore defense. I think you could have Hollywood and you could have Lamar and all these guys making fantastic plays. But if you do that, it doesn't quite matter if your defense gives up those plays on the other end afterwards. And I also find that they kind of take their foot off the gas pedal sometimes. And we've seen that on prime time. We've seen it on Sundays. And I think it's a Chicago at home getting some where I'm going to actually take the points with Chicago.
Wow, this is getting scary, because I talked earlier this week. I think a lot of people see Baltimore in the bounce back, 10 days off after the butt whooping in South Beach. I look at it the other way. The Bears coming off the bye, Justin Fields starting to get some momentum, starting to get a little more comfortable. I have these guys on upset alert. I think your eyes are spot on here. Listen. When we talk about this, our friend Kelly in Vegas, a little sprinkle, a little on the money line. I'm seeing a 5.5. There are some 6. All bear ticket holders, hold on here because the public will push the Ravens to probably 6 at kickoff, and I see it at 6 already at Caesars. I see. Hold on here just to see what happens. And sprinkle a little on that money line. Andrew, great eyes there. I agree 100%.
Awesome. I'm happy we're on the same page. Like I said, we've had some pretty good success and we've been on the same page so far. So I'll slow down there. Is there any games that you wanted to discuss or take a look at? What were your thoughts on that Cleveland-Detroit game? You mentioned Detroit a little bit because I've been cashing some under tickets with this Cleveland team.
I think word came out today that Chubb is all set. He's ready to go. Cleveland, bad taste in their mouth. They're going in the opposite direction. The Lions have been Jekyll and Hyde. This number is just going to keep going. I would strongly suggest anyone here listening right now, go punch your Cleveland ticket, see if you can get an 11.5. I think they can decide how many points they want to score. I think defensively, with Goff most likely out, I can't see the Lions getting more than 10, maybe 13. I see a 30, 31, 13 all day here. Yeah. I think that should be a good play. A lot of people have been cashing in on those unders, as you said, on the Detroit and Cleveland side. Opened at 46 and a hook. Circus got it at 43.5. And again, I think that has a lot to do with Goff. I could see that under coming in. I feel stronger with Cleveland dictating the score and punching the ticket there. And the other game that I'm going to bring up quickly here, Arizona and Seattle. I'll go on record right now and say this. I think Murray will find a way to play here. Do I agree with it? No, I don't. They have the bye week next week. There's no reason to play Murray or Hopkins. Hopkins isn't going to play. They got a week next week, then they come back week 13 and they roll. Last week on the show, we talked about the whole world was on Seattle. They were Russ was back. They're coming into Lambeau, and Russ equaled rust, and they got shut out. Okay, now they're 3-6. They come back home. I think Seattle gets it done here. A 3-6 team. They're not out of it for a wild card. I think they take the home court advantage here. I think they win outright. It's currently at 2.5. If you want to buy the hook, take them +3. Take them in the money line. But I think Russ gets it done on Sunday.
I love it. And I think that it's a good situational spot, like you mentioned, with a team that's got a bye coming up. And I think that, hey, as a Packers fan, I saw what happened last week. To that Seahawks team. And I think people might overreact to that. So I'm right there with you. It's a good spot play.
All right. Let me get this up here. Week 69. 7 days, $69 at WT Buzz /AM. The stage is yours, my brother. Take it away.
Once again, just happy to be here. Close off the week with you, Jeff. Great to do a show with you, and happy we're on some of the same sides again this week in the NFL. But UFC continues to be successful. Just pretty much doing one play a card, 1 or 2 max. I've mentioned low volume has worked for me. As much as we all love to get heavily involved in these cards, the best bets have been the best bet for me for a reason, and it's because I'm just isolating one play. So best bet for me tomorrow night, Saturday in the UFC, massive card tomorrow in the NHL. You guys already heard my favorite CFL play, but we always say don't buy just one play, don't buy just one day. Grab a week sample size. We'll try and have a big week for you, and it's $50 off using that promo code week69. So that's all I have for today. Happy to be on here with you again. Let's try and cash back-to-back big winners in the CFL. Nobody likes to cheer on a boring game, Jeff, but let's see some sloppiness tonight in the CFL and cash that under.
That was a great call last week. I'm on it today. And again, it is great to be on the same sides of you with a few games, a few props. We'll be back at it next week as well. So again, follow Andrew at McGinnis Picks, at Wager Talk, at Sports Mayflower. Go over to YouTube to Mayflower Sports. Subscribe, check the like button, retweet to all your friends. I want to thank you guys personally, from myself and from Andrew. We wish everyone the best this week and weekend, and we hope to see you soon and early next week before Thanksgiving as well. So thanks, and see you soon.